3, 2, 1. Hi everyone, we are Rick and Maureen from Hunterline in Cambridge, Ontario. Hunterline produces craftsman kits in all scales, and we want to take you through a few of our techniques and methods that we use to accomplish our end result. Maureen is going to show you, well, you go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to show you when I first start a kit. I take all the wood and I distress it. So I'm putting a grain in that wood so it will accept the stain, and the stain will really ooze into all the crooks and crannies. So I usually use a razor saw, a fine tooth razor saw. It's 42 teeth to an inch. And I'm just going to give you an example here of distressing and not distressing. So I'm going to take this piece of basswood and distress half of it. And how to do that is I just take that razor saw and with some pretty good amount of pressure, drag it over the wood. You can make little S's in it or little curves, whatever you like. I do all the sides. So I'm getting that grain to pop up. And you can bang it here and there and put little knots in it. And that's all it takes. And then I take the weathering mix. I'm going to use a light gray, just a light color so it will show all that grain. And I just use any cheap dollar store brush. Oh, before I do that, I should put my gloves on. It's just a good thing to wear gloves if you don't want this stain on your hands for a couple weeks. So just take the weathering mix straight from the bottle and just brush it on any old way. And this is what I do to all the lumber. I usually put a base coat color on. I pick some light color and stain all the wood before I glue it together. Because if you put it together and then stain it, if you've got a little bit of glue on your wood oozing out, it's not going to accept the stain. So Rick, maybe you can kind of zero in on here and see if people can see that difference of distressed and not distressed. Look good? Mm-hmm. Okay. So huge difference, but it's really well worth it if you take the time to do that. Now Rick, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the stains while I prepare this board. I'm going to show you an example of dry brushing our different stains. So I'm going to start with this. Pretend this was a wall maybe of a building that you're doing. Of course you'd have your base coat color on already, but for this purpose I'm just going to add it now. So I'm going to start out with a light gray, and then I'm going to dry brush different colors on it, so you'll see just the effect you can get by starting with a light color and building on it and adding darker colors. So I'm just going to start putting a coat on while Rick talks to you a little bit about the weathering stains.
Back in maybe 2004, 2005, we all had that same problem that Floco and Polyas and some of the other ones went by the by, and we didn't know what to do, so we decided, okay, we're going to make our own. So our original formula was actually in Model Railroader of March 1972, and it was alcohol and leather dye. So that's our starting point, where our first color was that, and we call it creosote black. Even though it has nothing to do with creosote, it's just a nice black wash. One of the things about model railroading is there's a lot of grease, oil, soot, crap on everywhere, and that's what that black is for. So Maureen is putting on a base coat right now. You can see that it goes on really quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, and you just slop it on, really. It doesn't take a lot of skill to do this. Just a lot of imagination, I guess.
I usually say if it takes longer than 2 seconds, you're taking too long.
And what's kind of neat about this is that it's board on board, so each piece of lumber comes from a different part of the tree, and it takes the stain a little differently. So really your weathering is done right there. Each piece looks altogether different.
The alcohol we use is actually 70% isopropyl alcohol, which is available at any drugstore and a lot of food stores. everywhere. So you can, if you want to dilute it for some reason to make it a little lighter, you just add some alcohol to dilute it down. Do not use water. Water and alcohol, they might mix for drinks, but not for our stuff.
So that you can see this is pretty wet. So I'm just going to let it dry a little bit. I'll show you that that was light gray. And maybe what I'll do, whoops, is put a base coat of driftwood on another section of this board. If I can find it. Give your bottles a little shake. Make sure the caps are on nice and tight or it's going to evaporate. Sometimes I'll put the weather mix in a container like this if I've got a lot of lumber to do, and I'll put the mix in there and I'll hang on to my lumber and just put the weather mix on like that. Some people will put the weather mix in a long tube and just set all the lumber in there and pop them out and put them on a paper towel to dry. So this is driftwood, another nice light color. I'll just put it on this section of the board.
The wood we use is basswood. Basswood is an elongated fiber and it's extremely strong. A lot of modelers use balsa. Balsa is just way too light. It's great for airplanes, but for trains you do not want any give or take in the wood itself. You want it as strong as you can get. So basswood is like we use Mount Albert scale lumber, as well as some other companies depending on what exactly type of lumber we want. But when you have a big structure, like some of our O-scale kits are like 48 inches long, and you don't want a locomotive to go across there and start dipping and diving going across. You want it to be rigid enough that it goes across with no effort.
I think that's enough. You can see the light gray is starting to dry. It usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes for it to completely dry. You noticed I didn't clean my brush in between. I probably should. You can clean, it's an easy cleanup. You can use just alcohol or just soap and water. I usually just dab it on and wipe it off on a paper towel. Unless I'm using a dark color and then going to white, I usually use another paintbrush for doing the white. Okay, so that's drying up pretty nicely. What I'll do, I think I'm going to try and get a color of like an old barn wood. So I'm going to put a little bit of Cordovon brown on here. We kind of looked at what rotting wood looks like on barns and noticed that all the really old rotten pieces of the wood is usually a browny color. So to dry brush, what I do is stick your brush right in the bottle and then dab a lot of it off on a paper towel. I'd rather start out light and then be able to work up on that. So then take your brush and just in varied spots. Rick, I don't know if maybe you want to try and zone in on that a little bit so people can see that. It might dab it off and just go to varied spots on, can you see that okay?
Yep.
Just go to varied spots on your board. Dab off as much as you would like. You can always make it darker. Hard to make it light.
One of the things about Mother Nature is there's many textures and many colors and many variations of the colors. And that's the effect we're trying to get. Paint is different. Paint is very opaque and there's no variation in it. It is what it is. And usually something that's painted, it's only really good and fresh the first day it's painted, and then forever after it's got the weathering effect taken on. So Maureen, the word we use here is strategically place the dry brushing.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going I don't know, different parts of this board. So that's the Cordovan brown that I've got on there. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe a little bit of blue-gray. You know how that old wood sort of takes on a bluish tinge sometimes. So I'm going to try, whoa, I'm going to try some, and if it spills, well, you just mop it up. Whoa, not having a good time here with that. So there's a good idea. We heard somebody takes Todd Wiley from HO Scale Customs. He uses a roll of tape and sets his bottles in the roll of tape, and then that prevents the bottle from falling over. Just clean that up. Okay. So this is blue-gray I'm going to put on here.
You notice we have lots of paper towels around just in case.
If you could see that. Again, just dabbing it off, most of it. Working really light.
So you can see the effect of multiple colors like the gray and the browns, and now the bluish tinge is coming out a little bit. You got to remember at this stage it's still all wet, so it's going to dry just a little bit lighter than what you see now, but the colors are still there. The colors are permanent.
There, I don't, Rick, do you want to maybe zero in on that a little
We
bit
already
again? Are you? Okay. So there you can see all those different colors. The browns, the blue grays, and the light gray. Okay. So on the driftwood, maybe just to show a little bit more of a drastic change, I'll use a barn red. And if I can find it, there it is. Let's try that. So again, just dab some off. I'm gonna go a little darker. The barn red is really a strong color, so you know it depends how dark you want this red. If you want to start out dark, that's fine. So this is on driftwood. That's the base. I'm looking at this upside down, but I think it's showing you what I want it to show you. Yeah, and you can put as much or as little as you want, as I said. Doesn't matter. Just be creative. Here I'm putting it on really dark. And I'll show you some of our covered bridges and how I did those. But you see, it doesn't take much time to do that. Okay, I'll just show you a couple of these bridges. This covered bridge, I started, I distressed again all my wood, and then I put a base coat of driftwood on all the boards. And then once I got the bridge together, I dry brushed some boxcar brown. That's the color, the darker color that you see on there. And then under the eaves, I took my creosote black, and I took my brush, dabbed it in the creosote black, and just dry brushed it under the eaves and then up from the bottom. On the bottom where it might be moist, and you get a darker color. So you can see that. On the roof of this, we have basswood shakes. Rick, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the basswood shakes before I talk about how I stain them.
Basically, this design of a covered bridge was in the early section of the 1800s, and they didn't have the modern day shakes. They had old shakes, and I had to learn the process of exactly how they made them. some people look at this and say, oh, that's way out of scale. It is deadly to scale, because back then they took a log and they put a wedge in it, and then they give it a whack, and then whatever came off, that's what went up on the roof. So this is about 1.5 to 2 inches thick, but they're random. And we had the issue of, we couldn't find them anywhere in the world, so we decided, okay, we're going to have to create our own. So we don't have the laser cut equipment, so a company just close to us here is Imagine That Laser Art. They're only about 45 minutes away. We got together with them and started producing these. It comes on a sheet that's 4 inches wide and 12 inches long. And what's really neat about them is there's actually no waste on it. Can you show just the side there? This is the look that we were after, the overlap of the shakes. And it's a big overlap, and that's what we were looking for. But we use a different technique on this. Maureen, you want to say?
Yeah, I found the first bridge that I built, I stained all the shakes before I glued it together, and I had a really difficult time with the warping. So what I tried the next one was to just, I put my sheathing on first, and then I glued all the shakes on and let it dry up really well for about 24 hours. And then I stained, and that worked a lot better. So what I did for this specific bridge is I just turned the whole bridge upside down. And I took my driftwood. I wanted a sort of a light color on that roof, thinking that maybe, oh, the sun had bleached it out. So I took my driftwood and I just took it straight from the bottle, took my brush and just slathered that driftwood across all the shakes. And it really looks great. It oozes right down into all those crooks and crannies and really highlights those shakes.
It highlights the tabs. Actually, one of the things we do with the shakes, there's usually on a laser cut, there's a good side and there's a burnt side. Well, we actually use the burnt side showing, because that gives you more texture and coloring in each individual shake, and that's why they each look like they're individuals, as opposed to using a sectional color type thing.
Then afterwards you can take, this was, as I said, driftwood. Then I took a little bit of my creosote black, which is a great, just useful stain for washing things. And I took my creosote black and dry brushed a little bit of black here and there on that roof, just to give it again another dimension. So that's driftwood and boxcar brown. This is one that is the red, and that I started out with a light gray again and dry brushed the red in different spots, and then took
The other way.
this way.
Yeah.
Then took my creosote black and did a wash again down from the eaves, just to give that little bit of shadow and darkness, and up from the bottom. Okay.
You can see the variations of colors in the shakes.
Yeah. How's that? Good. I'm just going to show you just different ones here that we've got. This is another one. This is one that I did with all our some of our new colors, 5 new colors. We have all the earth tones, and this bridge actually has all 5 colors on there. You wouldn't have to do that, but I was just playing around. So I started out with a yellow ochre. That was my base coat, the lighter color that you see there, and then I just dry brushed burnt sienna, burnt umber, raw umber, and also used my black as well on that, again for the shadows. So it came out pretty good, I think. So that's just another example. This is just a little N scale one. And that again is driftwood with some black on it. Okay.
One of the things about the N-scale one, that the shakes themselves, that's the only product we have that's not a basswood. That's actually a birch veneer that you use in laser cutting. We just could not get basswood thin enough to be the scale depth of an N scale. So we had to go as thin as possible, and then it's a birch. So it's going to react a little bit different to the color and glue and so on, but we think the effect is still there, and the look that we want is still there.
Okay, so thought maybe we'd talk a little bit about how we do our ties for all our bridges. And what I usually do is I take 3 containers, disposable containers, and I'll pour a little bit of maybe black in one, light gray in another, and I don't know, tie brown in another. Tie brown is really a great color for ties. It's very dark. I have some.
That's the closest we got to creosote.
Yeah. I actually don't have it out here, but anyway, we're going to put it, I'll just show you how I do this process. So pour some in. You've got tiny little parts. Get yourself a metal sieve. If this bath was a little deeper, thank you. If this bath was a little deeper, you could just pop it in and it would cover up the ties. But for this sake, I'm going to just take my brush with all those little pieces in there and just put the dye on. So then you would just take them from that sieve and pop them on a paper towel. Just move that over here so you can see. So you've got one color there. Rick did find the tie brown for me. So I'll put this, just going to move this back so you can see. How's that?
Yeah.
Good? Mm-hmm. So the next container I'll put some tie brown. It's good to have all these colors that you're ready here. And I'll put say a handful of ties in the tie brown. Again, I'm just going to use my brush to coat them. Can you see that, Rick?
Yeah, we're doing good.
Okay, and then pop those out. And then maybe we'll put a light color, I don't know, say driftwood, in this last container. And stick the ties in there. These aren't ties, but just little pieces of wood I had laying around. And pop them out. So I don't know if you can see that, but those are 3 different colors of ties. So then you would just let those dry. And when you're putting them on your stringers, what I do is I just mix them all up and then place them haphazardly on those stringers. So you've got all kinds of different colors there. Because when you walk the line and you look at the ties, they really are all different colors. Is that showing, Rick?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
You kind of get that idea. And if you, Rick, if you want to zoom in on this bridge, this is really how it would look.
and talk about the highlight color.
Yeah. And then, can you see that? Yeah.
Let me zoom right in on it. There we go.
Okay, so once you've got all your ties laid out there.
In the middle. In the middle. No.
There?
Paintbrush in the middle. Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, okay. Then you can see where the dirt and grime and grease is, whether it's straight down the middle or it's off to the side where the rails are. Just take it. I usually like to use the tie brown because it's much darker than the creosote black, and I'll take the tie brown and I'll just take my brush straight from the bottle. I don't dry brush this, and I take it and I just bring it down the track over those ties. Okay, and then what you can do after that is you can take your creosote black, because it is a lighter wash. It's not so heavy as the tie brown, and you might just want to meld all those colors together. So you can take your creosote black and just kind of put a light coat over everything, and it will just kind of blend all those colors of the ties in. Okay, so that's what we do for ties. I don't know if there's anything else about the wood, Rick, that we can say. I think that covers the wood.
Well, let's move on to plastics then.
Yeah.
We are not plastic people, we are wood people. But we have a lot of our dealers that actually, deal in like plastic, for an example. And one of the things that we get told about this is usually plastic has the releasing agent on it. And to do a proper job, you have to remove that and then do a lot of prep work to the plastic surface before the stain will accept it. While using the alcohol base is different because the alcohol actually dissolves the releasing agent and puts the color on all in one operation. So instead of taking maybe hours to do the proper prep work, this again takes only about 2 seconds. So as you apply it, it removes that releasing agent off of it.
Mm-hmm. This is just a cheap boxcar we picked up, just bright red plastic, as you could see on the one side. Okay, and what I did very simply was I just took my creosote black wash and put it on this boxcar. You can again dry brush it. Just put your brush in the water, in the stain, dab most of it off, and this is the side I did previously, so you can see it's dulled down quite a bit, and the black has sort of highlighted all those little rivets. I'll just take it to the other side where it's bright red. Take a little bit off just in case you as I said, it's better to start out light. But you can see as I'm putting that on, it highlights all those little rivets. Just adds another dimension again. And a lot of people will use this in conjunction with pan pastels. They might put our stuff on as a base. There's a fellow on our website. If you go to our website, www.hunterline.com, we've got some other YouTube videos there, and there's a gentleman who does his boxcars using our stain, and he uses them in conjunction with pan pastels. They look great. I haven't tried it, but we should someday. I don't know if that's coming out very good there, Rick, but you just have to kind of play around with it. Okay, that's the other side. So it just spruces them up a little bit, makes them look a little bit more realistic. I had a little house here. It's a brick house with the shingles. And what I did for this one, for the shakes or the shingles, I took my black and just turned it upside down and put it across all of the shingles. And it really highlighted those shingles, just made them pop. Okay, that was a quick and easy way to make that look a little bit more realistic.
Now, one of the things over the years that we had an issue was, how do you put a light stain over top of a dark stain? So we started to do some experimenting with that, and what we found, if you actually add a pigment into the formula, which is actually a paint, okay, a paint base, then it will go over top of a light color, and that's opened up a whole new method that we can use. One of our ones is cottage white, and we have shale and cement, and you actually put it on and rub it off. Now Maureen's going to show you what it looks like on the bricks.
Yeah, really does a great job. I have shale here that I'm going to use. I'm just going to take a little piece of paper towel. You can use a sponge to wipe it off, or a paper towel, or Kleenex, whatever. And what you do is you just take the weathered mix straight from the bottle, and it's a little thicker, as Rick said, this pigment. And I'm going to put it on the top of this building here. Can you see that, Rick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I put the shale on there, and then I'm going to just rub it off. Don't wait too long before you rub it off, or it's going to adhere to that brick surface as well. You just want this into the mortar lines. really a quick and easy thing to do. There, can you see that? Yeah, and this side, that's a little bit more stark. That's the cottage white. And I do have a side, this side here is cement. So it just gives you an idea how that can change a little building like that. Okay, so that's the plastic. You want to move to rocks, Rick?
We started to do some other materials, and we have a series of both hydrocal and Durabond 90 that we use. Now this is wide open, like any color suits, any texture suits. If you have something specific of a certain mountain range or something or a certain color of rock, you can experiment around with it. We're just kind of all over the world here, so we have multiple colors. I always say that this is kind of a mood color thing. Whatever mood Maureen's in is what colors she uses to get the effect.
Yeah, I've got these started. So what I usually do is start it with something light again. This one a light gray, so there's a light gray base coat on this piece of hydrocal. Is it hydrocal, Rick?
That one's actually Durabond 90.
Oh, Durabond 90. Okay, whatever. Anyway, stick this the light coat on, and you can see it. It just highlights all the.
Too much.
Oh, there.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, right in the middle. All
Okay. Right. Highlights all the cracks and little bumps in that rock. The one thing is that it will suck it up. Okay,
that means you have to buy more.
Yeah. So just, start out with light gray. Then you can take your black if you want. Depends again where you're modeling, what part of the country you're modeling, what color rock you want. I might just dab a little bit off there to see how it's going to go. It's kind of hard because this is still wet, but I'm going to put it on straight and see how it goes. But it's a quick and easy way to add some dimension to those rocks. Then once that dries, it's going to take a little bit for that to dry, so I won't do it on that one, but maybe on this one. I've got some shale, or you could use the cottage white, and you can take the shale or cottage white or cement. Because it's thicker, it's a pigment, you can kind of dab that on the rocks in different areas, and it will take, can you see that? Maybe just on the peaks of the rock. I don't know if that stands out enough for you or not. But just dab it, take the flat of your brush and dab it. Okay, yeah, good. And then I've got samples here of a little stone wall. Now, I don't know if you can see this on here, but I took a very fine tipped brush and I used different colors. Can you see that, Rick? There, yeah. I took a very fine tipped brush and dipped it in barn red or yellow ochre or brown, and just dabbed it on. I first started out with a light gray coat. Then I took the brush and I dabbed different stones with different colors, just very sporadically, yellow ochre, a barn red, and a brown. And I think it turned out great. If it looks too stark for you, you can take light gray again and put a very fine wash on it to bring the colors, dull them down a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, Rick. Can you see the different colors? Yeah.
Yeah, we could.
Thought it looked great. Also foam. somebody said, you know, this works out of foam too. So we tried it on a piece of this pink insulation foam, is that right?
Yep.
And I started out again with the light gray, just brushed it on, and then took some black. You can see it's pretty dark in some areas. Took some black to darken it up. It took a lot of coats to cover this, actually. We scored it with an X-Acto knife first. The white you see is the cottage white. That was used as the base. And then I took a little bit of gray and just dry brushed a little bit of gray on that. And this side here is actually the shale. I just took the shale straight from the bottle, and it really seemed to cover it quite nicely. So that's that. And then,
Now, one of the our weathering mix comes in an 8-ounce bottle. Now, one of the things about those bottles, if you remember all the testers and all that, they all were in a 2-ounce bottle. One of the reasons for having it in a 2-ounce bottle is it could be taken on an airplane back then. Then 9/11 happened, and that all got taken away. So why have it in a 2-ounce bottle? So our bottles are 8 ounces, and that seems to be a sufficient quantity that, depending on your scale, but that can last for years. If you put that cap on tight, it'll not evaporate. So it's good for a long time, a good shelf life.
I just have another product here. It's can I say?
Yep.
It's a
Like,
chooch wall.
we just did a couple clinics at the Model Railroad University and in Springfield, Massachusetts, and the fellow who owns Chooch was there, and he questioned us whether it can be used on Chooch products. Well, so we took some samples from him, and there's the results.
Yeah, I think it turned out well as well. Like his walls look great. I think they're fantastic. This is the natural chooch wall. Can you, Rick, just check, make sure I'm in the right spot? That's the natural. This one here, just to show you that the stains will adhere, and it can work if you wanted to alter the color of the walls at all. There.
Yep.
This is a Bordeaux, very strong, dark color. I just put that straight on. This one at the end is sandstone. And then the bottom, let's see, what did I do? Black here, shale here. This one, what did I start with? I put gray on that area, but then I again took my fine tip brush and put different colors. I colored each individual stone, not each individual stone, but varied ones. Yellow ochre, a barn red, and a blue gray. And again, I think it turned out pretty good. Down here, this is blue gray, and this is cottage white, straight out of the bottle. Cottage white on there. So it doesn't come out really white. The colors won't probably come out the same as they would on the wood, of course, but you just have to sort of play around with them, and you'll get lots of varied colors. So I think it worked out well. I took the white, the cottage white afterwards, and you can see little white spots. I just kind of dabbed it with the flat of my brush again on different parts of the stone. So that's that.
We get asked how big of a vat do we have to mix all the weathering mix in. No, we don't. Maureen is a retired registered nurse, and she likes to inject things. So every bottle is made individually, and she gets all the syringes out, and she starts sucking up this and squirting in this and sucking up this and squirting in that. So everyone is an exact formula. And one of the things we take a lot of pride in is whatever a color is now, that's the same way it was 10 years ago. It's exactly the same. So in the long term, all our formulas are the same. And if you had to get another bottle and you want the same effect on it, you can still get it today.
Yeah, I think some of the other things people have used them on are fabrics. We've had people that buy the bottles for furniture as well. Somebody used our sky blue because it's a pigment in an oil painting.
And the reason for that was that they had a lot of sky in it. So they found it's cheaper to use our sky blue instead of the oil. So it's a neat effect. That's on our website. You can have a look at it.
Yeah. If you go to the website, you'll see lots of different pictures of people who've done models and see how they've weathered them. I think probably the big thing is that it's so easy to work with. It's, just straight from the bottle. You don't have to mix it with anything else, although you can get lots of varying colors from the same bottle. Just put a little bit in a container and add more isopropyl alcohol, 70%, and make sure it's in a tightly capped container or it will evaporate on you. But very, very easy.
In summing up, we produced a product here that is extremely easy to use. It's very inexpensive when you actually look at it, at the cost of it, and it has a lot of different techniques. We have got a lot of people worldwide that use it on all their layouts and all their structures and so on, and you have to try it. It's available from, we have a lot of dealers across the US and Canada. Not at every store, because this is a specialty product. It's usually at your high-end craftsman kit type stores. You can order it direct from us. For US customers, we have a warehouse in Maryland where we ship from there, so that you don't have an issue getting it across the border. We have the issue. But you'll find it's so simple to use, and the effects are great, and that's what we were trying to accomplish with it.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening, and come visit us at a show. See all our kits.
Our schedule's on the website, so you can see where we are. We do all the national shows from coast to coast. We're a motorhome and a trailer, and off we go.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.